Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, you all are having a wonderful day today. So, anyways, man, when it came down to it, I wanted to talk about the Baltimore Ravens and the way that they have been looking this NFL season. I wanted to talk about where I think potentially they could go. And I wanted to talk about overall the big win that they had yesterday, at least on Sunday night, if I do release this on Monday. But, anyways, when it comes down to it, Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens, they didn't just beat the LA Chargers, they pretty much shut them down. And as you can see, sort of in the bottom right corner there, at least on the screen, it says that the Ravens beat them 34-6. And of course, the LA Chargers, I believe in the AFC, they were looked at as the number one seed. Of course, in the NFC, I believe right now it is the Arizona Cardinals because they're the only team in the league right now that I believe is still undefeated. And the MVP race is very, very interesting for this season to me right now. Kyler Murray really looks like he can play. Lamar Jackson, I think, is in that MVP conversation as well. Josh Allen, I think, is in that MVP conversation as well. And who knows, maybe Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers a little bit later on, maybe they can creep up. That'll be very, very interesting to see as well. Justin Herbert, he maybe not be completely out of the race as well. All that is going to be very, very interesting. But the Baltimore Ravens, they really interest me in particular. And the reason why that is because I made a video probably about a month ago now, maybe even a little bit longer, that Lamar Jackson, in my opinion, when we were talking about elite QBs, I cannot necessarily have him in that conversation. I even went as far to say in my video that he would never personally be elite, at least I thought that, because I've seen a decent amount of QBs that have been like Lamar Jackson. And Lamar Jackson, what I am going to say is this, what I'll give Lamar Jackson this much credit for is this, he probably actually is the best and the most valuable running quarterback that I've personally ever seen. Now, do running quarterbacks, do they usually end up winning Super Bowl rings or repeated Super Bowl rings? No, not usually. Cam Newton usually wasn't that type of quarterback. Colin Kaepernick wasn't usually that type of quarterback. And there's even some ones in the past that they were decent. I believe that the greatest running quarterback of all time, in my opinion, was, who the hell was that dude that played for the Eagles and then got an MVP on the Vikings? I believe his name was Randall Cunningham. I believe overall that is the greatest running quarterback to this day. So when it comes down to it overall, can Lamar Jackson, can he overall win a Super Bowl ring? Can he win multiple MVPs? Can he get into that elite tier? We'll have to see what happens. Like I said, I only have 4 quarterbacks in my elite tier right now. I would have Tom Brady at number 1. At number 2, depending on who you rank, I think you either have Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers at number 2, so you pick there. I personally would put Patrick Mahomes at number 2, but that would be up to you just because of the results he has had within the past 2 to 3 seasons. But that's up to you. Aaron Rodgers could easily be at number 2, and if he's not at number 2, then he's at number 3. And number 4, I have to have Russell Wilson. Those are the only quarterbacks within the past, I don't know how many years, that have won something when it comes down to it, or at least, all in all, the ones that I would count consistently elite. So those are the only 4 quarterbacks to where I take a look at them and I say they're going to be first ballot Hall of Famers. There's going to be no doubt, no doubt about that whatsoever. But when it comes to the Josh Allens, the Lamar Jacksons, the Justin Herberts, the Patrick Mahomes. Now, Patrick Mahomes, in my opinion, he is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer more than likely. But his team is a little bit less talented this year, and they have been struggling ever since they've lost that Super Bowl and got completely dominated. You can tell that they're still trying to find their identity right now. So I'm going to be very interested to see how they fight on this year, and they're in a very competitive division. The Oakland Raiders are very competitive, even though they've had some of their slip-ups. The LA Chargers, of course, are very, very tough. And even the Denver Broncos, they're not someone overall that is going to make a Super Bowl run or anything, but they're not a team that you want to mess with, when it comes down to it. So the Kansas City Chiefs, if they really want to make the playoffs or possibly even make another Super Bowl run, which I don't think that they will, again this year they just look too vulnerable. And the teams in the AFC, I think, are too talented. We'll see what happens. But Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens, they interest me especially because I'm going to be curious to see where Lamar Jackson leads this team. I've seen Cam Newton lead the Carolina Panthers to the 2015 Super Bowl. And Cam Newton, he won an MVP in his career as well. So right now, once again, I have Lamar Jackson somewhat on that Cam Newton tier. The question about Lamar Jackson that I have is, can he lead that Baltimore Ravens team to the Super Bowl? Right now, they look very, very good. But I think my question comes in is what are you going to do in the playoffs? Because Lamar Jackson, he always looks very, very stellar. He looks very, very great in the regular season, as some of these running quarterbacks do. But then the playoffs come, and then they may face a good defense, or they may face a team overall that has a good game plan against them, and they revert back to their old ways. Or all in all, they end up having those same throwing struggles. Now, Lamar Jackson, what I'll give him credit for is this. He does not turn over the ball the same way that I've seen Cam Newton turn over the ball. He seems to be smarter with the football, and on top of that, he seems to be an all-around smarter quarterback, and he also seems to be more valuable. One thing I'll give Lamar Jackson credit for is that he was not a complete roller coaster quarterback like a Colin Kaepernick or like a Cam Newton. One thing I'll give Lamar Jackson credit for is that at least he has consistently made the playoffs. But the farthest that you've ever made it, I believe, has been the second round. You're 1-3 in the playoffs. So I need to see how Lamar Jackson reacts to the playoffs this year. He got a good victory win over the Tennessee Titans and facing his demons last year. But we'll see what happens. It'll be very interesting. Anyway, Skip and Shannon, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to tune in a little bit as well. This should be very interesting. And they're going to talk about where do they believe the Baltimore Ravens are going to go.
Ran over, around, and through the Chargers to the tune of a 34-6 blowout win. Lamar threw one touchdown in addition to spearheading Baltimore's always potent rushing attack. The Ravens won their fifth straight and now sit atop the entire AFC. So, Shannon, how high do you have Lamar ranked in the MVP race?
Skip is really close. There are a lot of guys that's in that.
Right now, if you were to ask me my MVP race, Lamar Jackson certainly has to be there. Right now, there are 3 quarterback candidates, that are within that top 3 range. Right now, at number 1, I would have to have Kyler Murray because he still is the only one that has an undefeated team. And on top of that, he's beaten some really good teams. I believe that he beat, the Cleveland Browns. He also defeated a couple of other very good teams as well. And no one expected the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, everyone expected the Arizona Cardinals to be a threat. But no one expected them to be the only undefeated team by this point. So Kyler Murray, he has to be number 1 in the race for me right now. Josh Allen is in there as well. And Lamar Jackson, he's in that 3rd place for me. You could argue him 2nd. You really could. And then in 4th place, I probably would have Justin Herbert. 5th place, I'm not necessarily sure. Maybe you could argue someone like a Aaron Rodgers or a Tom Brady. Some people would put them up there, but that's up to you. But that, my top 4 quarterbacks, in the MVP race. Number 1, right now I have to have Kyler Murray. Number 2, I have to have probably Josh Allen. Number 3, Lamar Jackson. And then number 4, I would probably have Justin Herbert. That would be my order. But if you had Lamar Jackson number 2, if you even had him at number 1, I would understand. I would just slightly disagree.
From Brady to you throw Rodgers if you want to throw Rodgers in there. But I think Brady, Murray, Kyler Murray, Matthew Stafford. But Skip, for me,
Matthew Stafford. Yeah, you know what? I forget about Matthew Stafford. I could potentially see that, but I think Matthew Stafford, he's gonna have to do a lot. Right now, he would not be up there to me with Lamar Jackson and some of those other guys. But maybe some of you disagree. But he certainly could be within the top 5.
I got Lamar,
but I can't have him over Lamar, Kyler Murray, or Josh Allen.
Skip, I don't think anybody is more responsible for their team winning and losing than Lamar Jackson. And what he showed us the previous 2
You can have an argument for that.
games is that teams say, you are not going to run the football, Lamar. The Broncos held him, and he took the last second. Instead of a kneel down skip, they scrambled and got 8 yards to go over 100.
Yep.
But he threw for 316 that day. And the coach says, we refuse. We're not going to even put you in that situation. Even if you try to get in the victory formation and run, we're going to hold. They had him to like 80-something. And he throws for 442, 4 touchdowns, and the walk-off in overtime. So for me, Skip, nobody, it seems to me, when he plays well, everybody plays well. Look at the way.
That's what a great player does. A great player, even sometimes when they're playing bad, they can uplift the other players around them. But football can be a little bit different because you can only play one side of the ball. But when it comes down to it, like even if we were to talk about basketball, like Steph Curry, for example, Steph Curry is a person that even if he, let's say, shoots 3 for 16, he's always going to be a threat. He's always going to create so much space out there in the court because of his shooting range and all in all what he can do and how he can penetrate to the basket. It's kind of the same thing overall. That's one good thing about these running QBs. Sometimes they will create more space on the field or something like that because all in all, sometimes they don't know whether that quarterback is going to scramble or all in all whether he's going to throw. But can Lamar Jackson throw down the field, at least long ball, if a team forces him and all in all gets the right game plan against him? Can he do that consistently? I don't know if he can, because I've seen some games where Lamar Jackson, he still has a little bit of a problem throwing it long ball, at least down the field, accurately in a consistent way. But we'll have to see.
Their defense, and we know what Justin Herbert has been this entire season, and they made him look very pedestrian yesterday.
That's a compliment, actually. I think that's you're giving him a break with pedestrian.
Skip, think about it. They've lost their top 3 running backs. They got Devontae Freeman. He couldn't find a team the last 2 years.
No.
Le'Veon Bell, nobody wanted him.
New Orleans didn't want
Latavius Murray.
No.
And they come in and they balled it.
Yep.
Touchdown. Look, if Devontae Freeman had a nice run, Murray had a run, Le'Veon doing his thing. And Hollywood dropped a touchdown yesterday. That ball right on the money. You got to catch that one. You got to help your quarterback out on that situation, Hollywood. But Skip, you look at what he is as a passer, and he's 7th in the NFL in rushing. And they're the top seed in the NFC. Skip, they beat the Colts, they beat the Chargers, they beat the Chiefs. They're for real. They're legit. And it looks like it's probably going.
We'll see what happens. They also probably should have lost a couple more games than what they did. But that's not me trying to make excuses overall when it comes out, and that's not me trying to diminish them. I just want to see what they do in the playoffs in a very tight game. What I'll give Lamar Jackson credit for is this. So far, he's done very, very well in tight game situations. He did well against the Kansas City Chiefs. He had a very gutsy and ballsy call, where I believe it was 4th and 2 and he ran for it. And I understand why, because when you have quarterbacks like a Patrick Mahomes, and Patrick Mahomes, he actually is someone that, in my opinion, usually is pretty good under nerves when it comes down to it. You don't want that guy, to get the ball back in his hands. So he was responsible for winning that game. When it came down to it, he certainly was responsible for winning this game. Winning Detroit, even though, of course, it was Justin Tucker, I believe is that dude's name for Baltimore, that kicked that, record field goal, but it still doesn't matter. Lamar Jackson got them up the field. Lamar's looked astounding this season. He's looked very, very good. But will that continue? We'll see.
Come down between them and Buffalo as the road to, I think, here in SoFi.
Yep.
It's probably.
Buffalo is going to be a big challenge, and right now they have to be my favorites to take the AFC. But if I saw the Baltimore Ravens pull off the upset, would that be a Mike Tyson, Buster Douglas type of upset? No, of course not. That's a 50-50 fight. That's a 50-50 matchup. So both Buffalo and Baltimore, depending on who has the number 1 seed, which I'm going to probably think a little bit later on down the line that it is probably going to be Buffalo just because their division not as competitive as the Baltimore Ravens. But you never know. That's going to be very interesting because whether that game is in Baltimore or whether that game is in Buffalo, it's going to be tough for both of them. I mean, they're going to have to lay out their whole entire heart on the line to win that game.
You're going to go through one of those cities. That's where it's
because both of those teams are very, very complete. But the reason why I would give my slight edge to Buffalo is that I think that Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, his decision-making actually is not nearly as bad as some of the other running quarterbacks that I've seen in the past, partially because they cannot throw completely accurately as, much as some of the pocket passing quarterbacks. But Lamar Jackson, it's not like he has a bunch of turnovers, at least, when it comes to interceptions. So I have to give Lamar Jackson a hell of a lot of credit there. He's a lot better, or at least a lot more consistent than a lot of these other running backs that I've seen in the past. So is he a little bit different? Who knows? Maybe he is. Maybe he'll be the first multiple Super Bowl winning running quarterback.
Up, Skip. So for me, I'm going to put Lamar, I know.
Or even Super Bowl winning running quarterback. And I don't necessarily count people like Steve Young and all that stuff because I don't think Steve Young was necessarily always a running quarterback. When I say running quarterback, I'm talking about a dude that is supremely athletic and is a dude all in all that, usually relies on running to get a way out. And Lamar Jackson is one of those quarterbacks. And he is a little bit limited as a thrower, at least super deep down the field. So it is what it is. We'll see what happens.
It's a very unpopular opinion, but I'm going to take Lamar because what I've seen from start to finish, they really should have won opening night. He didn't play well against the Raiders, had the costly fumble, but since then, he's been marvelous.
I don't think it's unpopular. I think it'd be a popular opinion.
I think it's gaining steam now, Skip. I really do.
There's a lot of narratives for Lamar Jackson to get the MVP this year for whatever reason. I'm not exactly sure why that is when it comes down to it. But right now, in my opinion, it has to be Kyler Murray. And I think Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, you can debate it who number 2 is. But right now, one of those 2 quarterbacks, in my opinion, they would be in the MVP conversation. The MVP conversation is really going to be interesting this year because there's so many people that it really could go to. But right now, I'm looking at Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Kyler Murray. It's going to be a very tight race between those 3.
The easiest to root for of all these quarterbacks because
I might have to do a video on Kyler Murray. That dude can that dude can play. I've never seen a quarterback of that height. I don't know how tall he is, but I believe he's about 5'8", 5'9", 5'10" at most. And the way that he can scramble and make a pass at almost any given time, I mean, wow. That kid is great.
Degree of difficulty has been the highest.
Right.
They have been decimated the way nobody has been decimated.
At
Even
some point in time, they
the
were down
line.
left both tackles. As you mentioned, they were down both tackles. They lost Peters, who was one of their better defenders.
Okay. I'm sticking by my guy Brady.
You okay?
But it's getting closer by the throw or the run.
Yes.
So Brady has 17 touchdown passes to only 3 interceptions.
Right.
Brady has only 1 turnover-worthy play, which was the interception this last game
Right.
that you and I went back and forth about. There was almost a second one, but they're not grading that as a turnover.
Okay.
So
I could see Tom Brady winning the MVP, but, unfortunately with a lot of the media, you know what they always love to say, well, this person has too much help, so they cannot possibly get the MVP. And with Tom Brady, with him recently winning the Super Bowl, and on top of that, when it comes down to it, with him being on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I'm not saying that it's impossible, but it is going to be a little bit harder for him. Now, he has won the MVP, in prior years with the New England Patriots, of course. But that was a little bit different, even though there were still certain people trying to push the narrative that Tom Brady, all in all, that he still had the most talented team in the NFL. It wasn't as widespread as it is now because Tom Brady does debatably now have the best roster in the whole entire NFL. And I'm not even sure if it's that close. There's not a whole roster in the NFL right now that I look at and say, wow, they're as talented as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Because at least there were several times where Tom Brady before, where he, was in the MVP conversation because all in all, his teams, even though they may have been looked at as one of the most talented teams in the NFL, there were still some teams that could have competed with them. Now at this point in time, I'm not even sure if there's one team that can compete with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in terms of just all-around talent. So we'll see what happens.
the point is he has 3 interceptions, but on opening night...
I mean, maybe the LA Rams, but I can't rely on Matthew Stafford, at least not as of yet. He's got to show me something first.
He had the Hail Mary attempt interception, and he had one that hit Leonard Fournette right in the hands and glanced off, and Diggs got it. That was his emergence onto the scene.
Right.
So I'm sticking by Brady, but it is getting close because Kyler is unconscious right now.
He is.
So he's
That dude Kyler Murray is an animal. He was very good in his first season, which I believe was last year. That dude has been absolutely outstanding this season. I mean, wow. Kyler Murray, that dude can play. I mean, for his size, man, he has a fantastic arm, at least from what I've seen. He can scramble extremely well. He plays very intelligently. Sometimes he does make some mistakes, but I think all in all that could very much improve later on down the line. He almost reminds me of Russell Wilson, to be quite honest with you. But we'll see what happens.
13 touchdowns to 4 interceptions with 3 rushing touchdowns. But I believe that the voters, or maybe the masses, on Kyler and Arizona, they're just like, wait and see. Because they jumped off hot last year, and there was the Hail Murray.
Right.
And from the Hail Murray forward, when they beat Buffalo at home, he fell apart.
Right.
And he got banged up.
He got nicked against Seattle. I think it might have been the next game.
Game, and he was never quite right.
Correct.
And he struggled. His arm's been banged up, and he looked fine yesterday.
Right.
But again, they are a flying circus right now of aerial display because they're as fun to watch as anybody.
Hey, Skip,
they
people
just
talk
light it up.
about the Cowboys receiving core, and they talk about Tampa's receiving core, but Arizona's not taking a backseat to anybody.
I don't think so.
With Greed, Hop, Rondell Moore, Christian Kirk, now they got Zach Ertz added into the mix.
Wow.
I'm not going to favor the Arizona Cardinals to make it out of the AFC because, once again, teams that are kind of new on the surface, especially with quarterbacks that are heavily inexperienced in playoffs, and Kyler Murray has never made the playoffs before, I don't think that the Arizona Cardinals, I don't think personally that they get past the NFC Championship. My favorites would still be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but we'll see what happens.
They got a nice squad over there.
Because I want to see overall if the Arizona Cardinals, if they have to meet, say, whoever makes it out of the NFC South, they'll probably beat them, whether it be the New Orleans Saints or possibly the Panthers if they were to get their shit together, but I doubt it. We'll see overall what happens. The Green Bay Packers would be an interesting matchup. Possibly the Bears, but I don't know if the Bears will make it. The Dallas Cowboys are going to make some noise as well. The Dallas Cowboys are very interesting. We'll see what they do.
Okay, but I think people are waiting and seeing on Kyler.
That's going to be the big matchups for Arizona. The Dallas Cowboys, the Green Bay Packers, and of course the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We're going to see how they perform.
Can he take the beating? Can he withstand it?
Right.
Can he keep standing?
Right.
Can he play at this level and sustain it for, we got 17 games,
Right.
so we got 11 to go,
Right.
But 6-0 was 6-0.
Right.
And I am impressed. So he's right in the middle of this.
Yes.
But it's hard for me to write off Lamar because of degree of difficulty.
Right.
Not stats. The stats don't do anything
Right.
for me. He's 9 touchdowns to 5 interceptions.
Right.
Well, that's what you call pedestrian
Right.
to me. He does have a couple of rushing touchdowns. But I watched the whole game yesterday, and I was blown away by how great Lamar was when it mattered.
Right.
Every play.
That's why I call him very Cam Newton-esque, because Cam Newton, he was always a dude that did not usually have all these impressive stats, but a lot of the times, especially in the regular season, he pulled out games overall that really mattered. Now, in the playoffs, of course, it was a little bit different here and there. But that's what I'm saying. Lamar Jackson, I'm gonna really wonder is he on the Cam Newton level? Is he on one of those guys level, or is he really going to be the best of the running quarterbacks that I've ever seen? He has an opportunity to become that. Will he? I don't know. And it's also going to be a question to see what type of hits he can take when it comes down to it, because Lamar does run with the football a hell of a lot. And sometimes that means that you're going to tear something or you're going to break something, and you may not be able to recover. And then that means all in all that you're going to have to rely a hell of a lot more on your throwing. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to be very interested.
That needed to be made, except the drop touchdown pass. He just made them.
Yes.
Arm, legs, arm, legs. And to your point, they just feed off him, and the defense feeds off him, and they made Justin Herbert look like he was back at Oregon struggling against Stanford or something.
He definitely made him look very pedestrian.
He was really struggling.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, after the game's over, I call up the numbers, look at the stats, and I'm like, wait a second, is this the game I watched? Because Lamar ended up with only 167 yards passing. Well, that's really below pedestrian. And he had 1 touchdown, but he had 2 picks yesterday.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So he threw 2 interceptions, and I'm raving. I tweeted, Lamar Jackson, I did like 20 greater than signs over Justin Herbert, because I'll take him over Justin Herbert any day or night.
Absolutely.
Just on.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see about that. Justin Herbert is really, really early on in his career. In terms of a natural thrower, I would take Justin Herbert, but we'll see overall what happens.
Football.
But right now, in terms of value, no, I cannot have Justin Herbert over Lamar Jackson. But like I said, it's only his second season, so we'll see what happens.
Backbone. Mm-hmm. I also think, I believe this with all my heart and soul, Lamar Jackson is a football genius.
He's skilled.
He doesn't express it after games.
Right.
He won't show you his genius
Right.
after games, because it's a lot of kind of all
He says
shucks
all the right
and stuff.
things. Hey, we got the dub. Yeah, if that's not what we're looking for. Yeah, we got this was that, but we're chasing something bigger.
I
Skip,
think
his connection with Mark Andrews.
Hey, it's special. He's seen things before they happen, and he's seeing them to where I can hurt you with my arm, or if you give me the littlest crack, I will kill you with my legs.
Yes.
And he's just...
Lamar might be the fastest running quarterback that I've ever seen. I was not really around when Michael Vick was in his prime, so maybe I missed him. I did watch a lot of highlights of Michael Vick, but, and Cam Newton, he was pretty decently fast too, and Russell Wilson, of course, but this dude, Lamar Jackson, this dude is like the goddamn Flash on the field. If he breaks loose, you ain't catching him.
spectacular. He is a little beyond the Michael Vick experience we used to rave about.
Yeah, Skip, because if you watch him, Skip, and I've been watching him really, really closely, he's throwing people open. He's not waiting there. It got him in trouble yesterday because he hit 44 right between because Hollywood had the deep over lined up on the left. It was going to run the deep dagger route, and he hit him right between the chest. But he was throwing him where Hollywood was going to be, and I don't know. He just didn't see 44 standing there. But if you watch him, he's going through his progressions. 1, 2, check it down. 1, 2, oh, let me go here. He's doing an unbelievable job of surveying the field, and he's not looking, 1, 2, let me take off. He's advanced. Now he's doing a calculus class. It's no more this simple arithmetic. He's phenomenal, and I don't think he gets enough credit, Skip, because he's not going to go out there and throw for 300 yards like, say, a Brady or like a Mahomes or some of these other quarterbacks. But his legs, again yesterday, Skip, 187 yards rushing. They said, well, we're going to play coverage. We've seen enough. And now they run you off the field.
Lamar had 51 of those yards, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it seemed like every yard he got was crucial.
Exactly.
And the Bateman kid, their first-round pick, did finally play yesterday and caught 4 balls for 29 yards. So they're starting to cook.
Right.
And you played there, and you know the pride in that locker room. There's nothing like it.
Yep.
To me, seriously, in the league, there's nothing like the Ravens' pride, that purple pride.
Skip, you hear Coach Tomlin says a lot of times, he say there's a standard in which the Steelers have. But there's a standard in that Ravens locker room. And they take that floor man, play like a Raven. That's the standard. That's what, whoever you want to be you quirky or unique, you want to be quiet, you want to be outgoing, just go play. They embrace that. And from the time that I got there in 2000, and it's carried on, the one thing that has not changed, Ozzie Newsome and his imprint on this organization.
It has not changed.
It has not changed.
And John Harbaugh's imprint on his coaching staff, there's not a better top-to-bottom coaching staff than this one.
You know, you say you would like to play for Mike Tomlin. If anybody, I'm not so sure if John Harbaugh wouldn't be the guy I'd like to play for.
Really?
John.
You know, everyone always says that they like to play for Mike Tomlin, but what has that dude done within the past, I don't know how many years? The Steelers have basically got their ass whooped by more elite teams for really the past 10 plus years. Mike Tomlin really hasn't done shit for that team within the past I don't know how many years. You know, a certain amount of people, they ain't going to agree with this, but Mike Tomlin overall, he might actually be the most overrated coach throughout the whole entire NFL. And that's not me trying to insult him. I think that he's a decently great coach, but it's almost like Doc Rivers in the NBA. After a while, you take a look at it and it's like, you know what, dude? You have all this damn talent, and it's like you just blow games away all the goddamn time. I mean, just a few years ago, like even when Brady was winning repeated Super Bowls, they literally had the most talented team throughout the whole entire league. They had one of the best defenses. They had debatably the best offensive line. They had still a decent quarterback, although a little bit of an overrated quarterback at this point in time in Ben Roethlisberger. Sure, but when it comes down to it, like, if they were going to be Super Bowl contenders, they would have done shit by now. I'm sorry. Mike Tomlin is a great coach, don't get me wrong, but, you know, he's the Doc Rivers of the NFL. he's a decent head coach. He's a great head coach, don't get me wrong, but he is vastly overrated sometimes compared to some of these other head coaches. I mean, there's so much shit overall that, in my opinion, he gave up. Just like Doc Rivers, when you take a look at it, like when he was coaching, you know, with Blake Griffin, Chris Paul, and DeAndre Jordan, and he gave up a 3-1 lead to the Houston Rockets. Or when he was coaching the LA Clippers, you know, and I've even heard some people bitch about, you know, him giving up a lead, you know, when he was up on Kobe and the LA Lakers, I believe back all the way in 2010. You know, Mike Tomlin, I like him as a coach, but, you know, I think he gets a little bit too much credit. But it is what it is.
Harbaugh, man, because Skip, you see how he is with Lamar? I mean, Lamar, what you want? You want to go for that, Lamar? It's 4-3. You want to go for it? Hey, we going for it. What'd you see? Lamar makes a mistake. You know,
they respect. He's no pushover.
No. Absolutely
right.
not. But see, Skip, the level of respect that he has for them and the players reciprocate that. That's what you can appreciate. Now, if I wanted video game numbers, put me in the Chiefs offense. Because I know we gonna throw it 40 times a game. You know, you see Kelsey's gonna get all them targets. Tyreek gonna get his targets. But it's talking about just a coach. And it is a coach. But there's something about John Harbaugh. There's no swing of emotions. Guy throw interception. You know, you see some coaches, his team throw interception and he's down like, oh my goodness. Or you get up a touchdown.
Yo, that one, I don't remember the coach. Obviously, he's the dude's brother. Is it Jim Harbaugh when it comes down to it? I don't know. Remember that one coach that played for the San Francisco 49ers? That dude had a goddamn temper on him. That one dude who used to coach the 49ers. He was Colin Kaepernick's head coach. That dude, he coaches Michigan now, I believe. College head coach. That dude has a tude. That dude always used to make me laugh at the goddamn tantrums I used to have on the sidelines.
And you throw your headset all up in there. John Harbaugh.
John
Harbaugh.
He's the same.
It's the same.
Yeah. And he even added our man Rob Ryan to that.
Yeah,
which is great.
Yeah. Well, Rex was there with me.
Yep, he was.
That staff, Rex Ryan, Jack Del Rio, Marvin Lewis, was all on that staff.
All world.
That's a good point.
Mike
Did we
Smith.
witness, guys, the emergence of the NFL's next superstar during the Cowboys-Patriots game yesterday? And over the Patriots, Ezekiel Elliott was held in check by New England while Dak Prescott threw for 445 yards.
Dak Prescott, I forgot about him. He's another quarterback that is going to have a lot to prove this season as well. In my opinion, Dak Prescott, he's not on the level of some of these other guys. And I believe that all in all that he's a better thrower than Lamar Jackson, but he also is not as valuable as Lamar Jackson. Dak Prescott, the furthest he's ever made it was the second round, I believe. That's the same thing with, Lamar Jackson. And at one point in time, I would argue that Dak Prescott had the most talented team in the league. That one year they went 13-3. But it is what it is. Anyway, we'll see what all those quarterbacks do. That's why this season is so interesting, because there's always something to prove. I don't care what anybody says. Aaron Rodgers even has something to prove. Even Tom Brady possibly might have something to prove. Lamar Jackson really has something to prove. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert, Derek Carr. All these quarterbacks, all of them, they all have something to prove. Everything is on the line. And that's why I'm going to be so excited to see what happens this NFL season. But we'll see what happens. Anyways, for Lamar Jackson, do I believe that he is the MVP favorite right now? Well, he might be on some people's list. He wouldn't be my personal MVP favorite right now. I could understand why some people would say that. But I'm going to have to see, more as the season transpires. Right now, my favorite for MVP would either be Kyler Murray. He probably would be my number one. And then the number two, I would either have Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson. Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, they might be a little bit behind as well. Justin Herbert, Matthew Stafford. I could see all those guys potentially there, but none of those guys are in my top three right now. Right now, my top three, once again, I have Lamar Jackson somewhere in there, Kyler Murray, and Josh Allen. Right now, the MVP race to me is between those three players. We'll see who gets it. It'll be very, very interesting. And then also another question, and we'll see as the season goes along, will Lamar Jackson, will he be able to turn it up in the playoffs and keep this same pace of play? We'll see what happens. It'll be very interesting. Anyways, that's all I got for today for now. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll talk to you all later.